Woman abandons baby at church. 30 years later, the reunion reveals a truth no one could have imagined. Hello, welcome. Leave a like, subscribe, activate notifications, and enjoy this story. In a small town where secrets run deeper than the roots of its ancient trees, a man's search for his birth mother unravels a mystery that will shake the very foundations of his existence. As Michael delves into the past, he discovers that his abandonment was just the beginning of a story far more extraordinary than he could have ever imagined. The quaint town of Millbrook, nestled in the heart of Vermont, was known for its picturesque landscapes and tight-knit community. But beneath its charming exterior lay a web of secrets that had been carefully guarded for generations. It was here, on a crisp autumn morning, that Michael Thornton's life was about to take an unexpected turn. Michael, a 30-year-old software engineer from Boston, had always felt like a piece of his life's puzzle was missing. He had loving adoptive parents and a successful career, but a nagging emptiness persisted. It wasn't until his 30th birthday that his parents finally revealed the truth. He had been adopted as an infant, found abandoned at the steps of St. Mary's Church in Millbrook. The news hit Michael like a ton of bricks. His world, once solid and predictable, now seemed to be built on shifting sands. Questions flooded his mind. Who were his biological parents? Why had they left him? And why Millbrook, of all places? Determined to uncover the truth, Michael took a leave of absence from work and set out for Millbrook. As he drove into town, the fiery reds and golds of the autumn foliage seemed to mirror the tumultuous emotions swirling within him. His first stop was St. Mary's Church, a modest stone building that stood as a silent witness to the beginning of his life's mystery. The old wooden doors creaked as Michael pushed them open, the sound echoing through the empty nave. The air inside was heavy with the scent of incense and old wood. "Can I help you?" a gentle voice called out. Michael turned to see an elderly priest approaching, his kind eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Father, I'm hoping you can," Michael replied, his voice wavering slightly. "My name is Michael Thornton, and I believe I was left here as a baby 30 years ago." The priest's eyes widened in recognition. "Oh my," he breathed. "I remember that day as if it were yesterday. It was quite the talk of the town for months." Michael's heart raced. "Can you tell me anything about what happened? Who found me? Were there any clues about who left me here?" The priest, who introduced himself as Father Thomas, gestured for Michael to sit in one of the pews. "It was early morning, just before dawn," he began, his voice taking on a storyteller's cadence. "I was preparing for morning mass when I heard a baby's cry. When I opened the doors, there you were, wrapped in a blue blanket with a silver pin shaped like a crescent moon." Michael leaned forward, hanging on every word. "A silver pin? Do you still have it?" Father Thomas shook his head sadly. "I'm afraid not. It was given to the authorities as evidence. But there was something else, something I've never told anyone before." He paused, his brow furrowing as if wrestling with a long-held secret. "What is it, Father?" Michael urged, his palms sweating. "There was a note," Father Thomas said quietly. "It wasn't handed over to the police. I kept it against my better judgment. It seemed too important, too personal to be part of an official record." Michael's breath caught in his throat. "What did it say?" Father Thomas stood up slowly, his joints creaking. "Wait here," he said, making his way to the back of the church. A few minutes later, he returned with a small, ornate box. With trembling hands, he opened it and pulled out a yellowed piece of paper. Michael took the note with reverence, his eyes scanning the faded handwriting. "To whoever finds this child, his name is Michael after the archangel. Protect him, for he carries a burden greater than you can imagine. When the crescent moon aligns with the heart of the forest, the truth will be revealed. Until then, keep him safe from those who would seek to control his destiny. May God watch over him always." Michael read the note several times, his mind reeling. "What does this mean?" he asked, looking up at Father Thomas. The priest shook his head. "I've pondered those words for 30 years, my son. There are whispers in this town, old legends about the forest and the moon. but I'm just a simple man of God. If you want answers, you'll need to dig deeper into Millbrook's history." As Michael left the church, clutching the note in his hand, he felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He had come seeking his past, but instead, he had stumbled upon a mystery that seemed to stretch far beyond his own origins. Little did he know that his arrival in Millbrook had not gone unnoticed. In a dimly lit room on the outskirts of town, an old rotary phone rang. A wrinkled hand picked up the receiver. "He's here," a raspy voice said. "The child has returned." The Millbrook Inn, a quaint bed and breakfast on Main Street, became Michael's temporary home as he delved deeper into the town's secrets. His room, with its floral wallpaper and creaky floorboards, felt like a portal to another time. As he unpacked, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The next morning, fueled by determination and countless cups of coffee, Michael set out to explore the town. He started at the local library, a Victorian-era building that seemed to groan under the weight of its own history. The librarian, a petite woman named Eleanor with salt and pepper hair and bright, inquisitive eyes, perked up at Michael's questions about the town's history and legends. "Oh, honey," she said, leaning in conspiratorially. "Millbrook's got more stories than a cat's got lives. What exactly are you looking for?" Michael hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I'm interested in any legends related to the forest and the moon, particularly anything about a crescent moon aligning with the heart of the forest." Eleanor's eyes widened, and she quickly glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers. "Now that's a story I haven't heard anyone ask about in years," she whispered. "Come with me." She led Michael to a back room filled with old maps, dusty tomes, and filing cabinets that looked like they hadn't been opened in decades. Eleanor pulled out a large, leather-bound book, its pages yellow with age. "This is the town's unofficial history," she explained, carefully opening the book. "Stories passed down through generations, things that don't make it into the official records." As Eleanor flipped through the pages, Michael caught glimpses of hand-drawn illustrations depicting strange symbols and mysterious figures. Finally, she stopped at a page showing a crescent moon hovering over a dense forest. "The legend of the lunar guardian," Eleanor read aloud. "Every 30 years, when the crescent moon aligns with the heart of Millbrook Forest, a child is born with the power to see beyond the veil of our world. This child, marked by the moon, is said to be a guardian of ancient knowledge, a bridge between the seen and unseen realms." Michael's heart raced. Could this legend be connected to his abandonment? "What happens to these children?" he asked. Eleanor's expression turned grave. "The legend says they're hunted by those who seek to use their power for their own gain. Many were hidden away for their protection." As Michael absorbed this information, a commotion outside caught their attention. Through the window, they saw a crowd gathering in the town square. Curiosity piqued, Michael and Eleanor stepped outside to investigate. In the center of the square stood an old woman, her silver hair wild and her eyes blazing with an almost manic intensity. She was shouting, her voice carrying across the stunned onlookers. "The wheel turns. The moon child has returned," she cried. "Beware the seekers of power, for they will stop at nothing to control the guardian." As if drawn by an invisible force, the old woman's eyes locked onto Michael. Recognition flashed across her weathered face, followed by a mix of joy and terror. "You," she gasped, pointing a gnarled finger at him. "You are the one, the child of the crescent moon." The crowd's attention shifted to Michael, murmurs of confusion and excitement rippling through the gathering. Michael stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sudden attention and the weight of the old woman's words. Before he could react, two men in dark suits pushed through the crowd, heading straight for the old woman. With surprising speed for her age, she darted away, disappearing down a narrow alley. The men in suits turned their attention to Michael, their expressions unreadable behind dark sunglasses. "Mr. Thornton," one of them said, his voice low and authoritative. "We need you to come with us." Michael took a step back, his instincts screaming danger. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" The second man reached into his jacket, presumably for identification, but Michael didn't wait to find out. He turned and ran, pushing through the bewildered crowd. As he fled, Michael's mind raced. The legend, the old woman's words, the mysterious men. It all seemed too fantastical to be real. Yet he couldn't deny the connection to the note left with him as a baby. He ran without direction, his feet carrying him towards the edge of town where the dense forest loomed. As he reached the tree-line, Michael hesitated, looking back at the town that held the secrets of his past. In that moment of indecision, a hand gripped his arm. Michael whirled around, ready to defend himself, only to find himself face to face with a woman whose features were hauntingly familiar. "Michael," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm Lisa. I'm your mother." The forest seemed to hold its breath as Michael stared at the woman who had given him life and then given him up. Questions burned on his tongue, but before he could voice them, Lisa's urgent whisper cut through the air. "We don't have much time. They're coming. There's so much you need to know. But right now, we need to hide." As the sound of pursuit grew closer, Michael made a split-second decision. He nodded, and together, he and the mother he never knew plunged into the depths of Millbrook Forest, leaving behind the life he once knew and stepping into a world where reality and legend intertwined. The truth he sought was within reach, but at what cost? As the forest enveloped them, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that his journey was only just beginning, and the revelations to come would change not only his life, but the fate of worlds he had yet to comprehend. The forest swallowed Michael and Lisa, its ancient trees standing sentinel as they fled deeper into its heart. Shafts of sunlight pierced the canopy, creating a dappled pattern on the forest floor that seemed to shift and dance with each step they took. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a stark contrast to the chaos they'd left behind in town. "Where are we going?" Michael panted, ducking under a low-hanging branch. His mind was reeling, trying to process the whirlwind of events that had led him to this moment. Lisa glanced back, her eyes, so similar to his own, filled with a mix of determination and fear. "There's a safe place not far from here, a cabin that's been in our family for generations. We'll be protected there, at least for a while." As they pressed on, Michael's thoughts raced. This woman, his mother, was now leading him through a forest that seemed to pulse with hidden energy. He had so many questions, but the urgency of their flight kept them at bay. After what felt like hours of trekking through the increasingly dense undergrowth, they emerged into a small clearing. In the center stood a rustic log cabin, its weathered exterior blending seamlessly with the surrounding forest. It looked as if it had grown from the very earth itself. Lisa hurried to the door, pulling an old iron key from a chain around her neck. As she unlocked the cabin, Michael noticed strange symbols carved into the wooden frame, circles, crescents, and intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the fading daylight. Once inside, Lisa quickly secured the door, drawing heavy curtains across the windows. The interior was sparse but cozy, with well-worn furniture and shelves lined with old books and curious objects. "We should be safe here for now," Lisa said, her voice tinged with exhaustion. She turned to face Michael, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I know you must have 1,000 questions. I owe you so many explanations." Michael sank into a nearby chair, the weight of the day's events finally catching up with him. Who were those men? What did that old woman mean about me being a moonchild? And why? His voice cracked. "Why did you leave me?" Lisa's shoulders sagged as she sat across from him. She reached out as if to touch his hand but stopped short, unsure. "It's a long and complicated story, Michael, one that goes back generations in our family. But you deserve to know the truth." She took a deep breath and began. "Our family has a unique gift. Every 30 years, when the crescent moon aligns with the heart of this forest, a child is born with extraordinary abilities. The ability to see beyond the veil of this world, to perceive truths hidden from others, and to influence the very fabric of reality." Michael listened, his skepticism warring with the undeniable sense that her words rang true on some deep, instinctual level. "You are that child, Michael," Lisa continued. Born under the crescent moon, marked as a lunar guardian, is a tremendous power, but also a terrible burden. There are those who would seek to use your abilities for their own gain, to manipulate the unseen forces of the world. The men in suits? Michael asked, remembering their pursuit. Lisa nodded grimly. They're part of an organization called the Veiled Hand. They've hunted our family for generations, trying to harness the power of the lunar guardians. They're relentless, and their reach is vast. Michael's mind reeled, trying to reconcile this fantastical tale with the ordinary life he'd led for 30 years. But why leave me at the church? Why not raise me yourself? Protect me. Pain flashed across Lisa's face. It was the hardest decision I've ever made. But I thought if I severed our connection, if you grew up away from all of this, you might be safe, that your powers might lie dormant. She wiped away a tear. I was wrong. The Veiled Hand never stopped searching. And now that you've returned to Millbrook, your powers are awakening. As if on cue, Michael felt a strange tingling sensation in his fingertips. He looked down to see faint, silvery light emanating from his hands. What's happening to me? He whispered, both awed and terrified. Lisa leaned forward, her eyes wide. Your abilities are manifesting. Michael, listen to me carefully. You're entering a dangerous time. As your powers grow, so will the Veiled Hand's determination to capture you. We need to. Her words were cut short by a loud crash outside. Both of them jumped to their feet as the sound of footsteps and voices surrounded the cabin. They've found us, Lisa hissed, grabbing Michael's arm. Quick, there's a hidden cellar. We need to. But before they could move, the cabin door burst open. The two men in suits from the town square stood in the doorway, flanked by others in similar attire. Their leader, a tall man with steely gray eyes, stepped forward. Lisa Thornton, he said, his voice cold and authoritative. You've led us on quite a chase. And Michael, he turned his piercing gaze to the younger man. We've been looking for you for a very long time. Michael instinctively stepped in front of his mother, the silvery glow from his hands intensifying. Who are you? What do you want from us? The man's lips curled into a humorless smile. My name is Director Caldwell of the Veiled Hand, and what we want, Michael, is you, your power, your destiny. As Caldwell took another step forward, the air in the cabin seemed to crackle with tension. Michael felt a surge of energy coursing through him, responding to the threat. Outside, the wind picked up, and clouds began to gather, obscuring the setting sun. Lisa gripped Michael's shoulder. Remember who you are, she whispered urgently. Your power comes from within, but also from this place, this forest. Trust in it. Michael's mind raced, torn between fear and an inexplicable sense of connection to the world around him. As Caldwell and his men advanced, Michael made a split-second decision. He raised his hands, unsure of what would happen but trusting in his mother's words and the strange new sensations flooding his body. A blinding flash of silver light erupted from Michael's palms, filling the cabin with an otherworldly glow. The Veiled Hand agents stumbled back, shielding their eyes. In that moment of chaos, Lisa grabbed Michael's arm and pulled him towards a hidden trapdoor beneath a rug. As they descended into the darkness below, the last thing Michael saw was Caldwell's face. A mix of fury and fascination etched across his features. The trapdoor slammed shut above them, plunging mother and son into darkness as they fled deeper into the secrets of their family's legacy. The hidden passageway beneath the cabin was a narrow, earthen tunnel that seemed to wind endlessly through the bowels of the forest. Michael and Lisa moved swiftly, guided by the faint glow emanating from Michael's hands. The silvery light cast eerie shadows on the rough-hewn walls, revealing glimpses of more strange symbols carved into the stone. Where does this lead? Michael whispered, his voice tight with a mixture of exhilaration and fear. Lisa's response was equally hushed. To the heart of the forest. It's a place of power, a sanctuary our family has guarded for generations. If we can reach it, we might have a chance to turn the tables on the Veiled Hand. As they pressed on, Michael's mind raced with questions. How long have you known about all of this? The Veiled Hand, these powers, everything. Lisa sighed, her pace never slowing. I've known my whole life, Michael. Our family's history with the Lunar Guardians goes back centuries. I hoped by giving you up, I could spare you from this burden. But the power, the responsibility, it's in your blood. It was always going to find you. The tunnel began to slope upward, and soon they emerged into a vast underground cavern. Michael gasped at the sight before him. The cavern was illuminated by an ethereal blue glow emanating from phosphorescent fungi clinging to the walls. In the center stood an ancient stone circle, its monoliths covered in the same intricate symbols they'd seen throughout their journey. What is this place? Michael breathed, taking in the otherworldly beauty of the cavern. Lisa stepped into the stone circle, her expression a mix of reverence and determination. This is the lunar sanctum, the source of our family's connection to the unseen world. It's here that your true training must begin, Michael. We don't have much time before the veiled hand finds a way to follow us. As if in response to their presence, the symbols on the monoliths began to pulse with a soft light. Michael felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to step into the circle with his mother. As he did, a jolt of energy surged through him, causing the silvery glow around his hands to intensify. Close your eyes, Lisa instructed, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality. Feel the energy of this place. Let it flow through you, guide you. The power of the Lunar Guardian is not just about seeing beyond the veil. It's about maintaining balance between worlds. Michael did as he was told, closing his eyes and opening his senses to the energy surrounding him. Suddenly, the darkness behind his eyelids exploded into a kaleidoscope of images and sensations. He saw glimpses of other realms, felt the ebb and flow of cosmic forces, and heard whispers in languages he didn't understand but somehow comprehended. What you're experiencing, Lisa's voice cut through the visions, is the astral sight. It's one of the gifts of the Lunar Guardian. With practice, you'll learn to control it, to see the threads that connect all things and even manipulate them. As Michael opened his eyes, the cavern seemed different. Shimmering lines of energy crisscrossed the space, connecting the monoliths, the fungi, even Lisa and himself. He could see auras of varying colors surrounding everything, pulsing with life and purpose. This is incredible, he murmured, overwhelmed by the beauty and complexity of what he was witnessing. Lisa smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. It is, but it's also dangerous in the wrong hands. The veiled hand believes they can use the power of the Lunar Guardians to reshape reality itself, to bend the world to their will. That's why they've hunted our family for so long. Michael's amazement was tempered by a growing sense of responsibility. So what do we do now? How do we stop them? Before Lisa could answer, a low rumble echoed through the cavern. Dust and small rocks began to fall from the ceiling as the tremors intensified. They're breaking through, Lisa said, her voice tight with urgency. Michael listened carefully. The power you possess is greater than you can imagine, but it comes with a price. Using it recklessly can tear the fabric between worlds. You must learn to balance it, too. Her words were cut short as a section of the cavern wall exploded inward. Through the dust and debris stepped Director Caldwell, flanked by his agents. Their suits were dirty and torn, but their determination was unwavering. The days following the confrontation in the lunar sanctum passed in a blur of intense training and revelations for Michael. The cabin, now reinforced with protective wards and illusions crafted by Lisa, became their sanctuary and training ground. Each day brought new challenges as Michael struggled to harness his awakening abilities under his mother's watchful eye. Focus, Michael, Lisa instructed, her voice calm but firm. They stood in a small clearing behind the cabin, the morning dew still clinging to the grass. The astral sight isn't just about seeing, it's about understanding. Look beyond the physical. Michael closed his eyes, concentrating on the energy he could feel pulsing around him. When he opened them again, the world had shifted. Shimmering threads of light connected everything. Trees, rocks, even the air itself seemed alive with possibilities. I see connections, he murmured, his eyes wide with wonder. It's like a web, everything influencing everything else. Lisa nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Good. Now, try to influence one of those connections. Start small. Maybe change the color of a leaf. Michael focused on a nearby oak tree, seeing the threads of energy flowing through its branches. With a gentle mental push, he tried to alter the flow. To his amazement, a single leaf began to change, its green hue shifting to a brilliant gold. "I did it!" he exclaimed, his concentration breaking. The leaf returned to its natural color as the astral sight faded. Lisa's smile widened. Excellent progress. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility, Michael finished, having heard the phrase countless times over the past few days. I know, Mom. I'm beginning to understand why the veiled hand is so dangerous. If they could control this power, they would reshape reality to their will, Lisa said gravely. Which is why we must be vigilant. The veiled hand has gone quiet since the confrontation in the sanctum, but they won't stay that way for long. As if summoned by her words, a piercing screech echoed through the forest. Michael and Lisa whirled around to see a large raven perched on a nearby branch, its eyes glowing with an unnatural red light. A familiar, Lisa hissed, her body tensing. They've found us. We need to move now. But before they could retreat to the safety of the cabin, the air around them began to shimmer and distort. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp, and suddenly they were no longer alone in the clearing. Director Caldwell stepped through what appeared to be a tear in space, flanked by a group of robed figures. His cold eyes fixed on Michael, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips. Did you really think a few wards and illusions could keep us at bay? He sneered. We've had millennia to perfect our craft, to find ways to breach the barriers between worlds. Michael instinctively moved to shield his mother, his hands beginning to glow with that now familiar silver light. How did you find us? One of the robed figures stepped forward, lowering their hood to reveal a face Michael recognized with a jolt of shock. It was Eleanor, the librarian from Millbrook. I'm sorry, Michael, Eleanor said, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and determination. But the veiled hand's vision for the future is greater than you can imagine. We need your power to make it a reality. Lisa's voice was tight with anger. Eleanor, you fool. You have no idea what forces you're meddling with. Caldwell raised a hand, cutting off any further discussion. Enough talk. Michael, you're coming with us. Your mother too. She still has knowledge we can use. Come quietly, and no one needs to get hurt. Michael felt a surge of power coursing through him, responding to the threat. The air around him began to crackle with energy. I'm not going anywhere with you, he growled. So be it, Caldwell sighed, almost sounding disappointed. He nodded to the robed figures. Take them. What followed was a chaotic blur of magic and mayhem. The robed figures began chanting in an ancient tongue, causing the very air to warp and twist. Michael found himself struggling to maintain his footing as reality itself seemed to become fluid. Lisa sprang into action, her hands weaving intricate patterns in the air. Roots erupted from the ground, entangling several of the veiled hand members. Michael, she shouted over the din, remember your training. Find the balance. Drawing upon his recent lessons, Michael reached out with his astral sight. The world exploded into a web of shimmering connections, and he could see the veiled hand's magic as dark, oily tendrils trying to corrupt the natural flow of energy. With a cry of effort, Michael began to push back against the corruption. Silver light poured from his hands, reinforcing the weakening fabric of reality around them. He could feel the strain of the effort, like trying to hold back a tidal wave with his bare hands. Caldwell's voice cut through the chaos. Impressive, boy, but how long can you keep this up? As if to punctuate his point, one of the robed figures produced a device similar to the one used in the lunar sanctum. As they activated it, Michael felt a sharp pain lance through his body. His concentration wavered, and the protective barrier of energy he'd created began to flicker. Michael! Lisa's voice was filled with desperation. She was locked in magical combat with Eleanor and two other veiled hand members, unable to reach her son. Through the haze of pain, Michael saw Caldwell approaching, that triumphant smirk still plastered on his face. "It's over, Michael. Your power belongs to us now." As Caldwell reached out to grab him, something deep within Michael snapped. A memory surfaced, his mother's words in the lunar sanctum. "You are the bridge between worlds, the guardian of the veil." With a roar that seemed to shake the very trees, Michael released a pulse of pure energy. The silver light exploded outward, shattering the veiled hand's device and sending Caldwell flying backward. The robed figures were knocked off their feet, their concentration broken. As the dust settled, Michael stood at the center of the clearing, his entire body glowing with an otherworldly light. When he spoke, his voice seemed to echo with the power of countless realms. "I am the Lunar Guardian," he intoned, each word resonating with authority. "This power is not yours to take or control. It exists to maintain balance, to protect the boundaries between worlds. Leave this place and never return." The forest itself seemed to respond to his words. The trees groaned, their branches reaching out to create a protective canopy. The ground trembled, and in the distance, a wolf's howl pierced the air. Caldwell struggled to his feet, his composure finally shattered. For the first time, real fear flashed in his eyes as he looked at Michael. This isn't possible. The prophecies never spoke of this level of power." "The prophecies were incomplete," Lisa said, moving to stand beside her son. Her eyes blazed with a mixture of pride and fierce protectiveness. "You never understood the true nature of the Lunar Guardian's role. It's not about power, it's about balance." Eleanor and the other Veiled Hand members began to back away, their earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty and fear. "Director," one of them urged, "we need to retreat. We're not prepared for this." For a moment, it seemed Caldwell might refuse, his face contorted with a mixture of rage and frustrated ambition. But as another pulse of energy rippled out from Michael, causing the very air to shimmer, he made his decision. "This isn't over," he snarled, echoing his words from the lunar sanctum. "The Veiled Hand has waited centuries for this power. We'll find a way to claim it, with or without your cooperation." With a gesture, Caldwell opened another tear in reality. He and his followers quickly retreated through it, leaving Michael and Lisa alone in the clearing. As the rift sealed itself, the unnatural energy that had permeated the air began to dissipate. Michael's glow faded, and he suddenly felt exhausted. He swayed on his feet, and Lisa quickly moved to support him. "Easy," she murmured. "That was incredible. I've never seen anything like it." What did I do?" Michael asked, his voice hoarse. The events of the past few minutes felt dreamlike, surreal. Lisa's expression was a mixture of awe and concern. "You tapped into the full potential of your role as Lunar Guardian. You didn't just use the power, you became a conduit for it. The forest, the very fabric of reality, responded to your will." As the implications of what had happened began to sink in, Michael felt a weight settle on his shoulders. "They'll be back, won't they?" Lisa nodded grimly. "Yes, the Veiled Hand isn't known for giving up easily. But you've bought us time, and you've shown them that their understanding of the Lunar Guardian's power is flawed." Michael looked around the clearing, taking in the aftermath of the battle. Scorch marks marred the ground, and several trees bore the scars of misdirected magic. Yet already, he could see the forest beginning to heal itself, green shoots pushing through the damaged earth. "What do we do now?" he asked, turning back to his mother. Lisa's eyes held a mixture of determination and hope. "Now we prepare. There are other Lunar Guardians out there, hidden and protected like you were. It's time to bring them together, to create a united front against the Veiled Hand." As they made their way back to the cabin, Michael felt a strange sense of anticipation building within him. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with danger and the weight of responsibility. But for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive, connected to something greater than himself. The crescent moon, barely visible in the daytime sky, seemed to wink at him. Michael smiled, feeling the power within him resonate with the celestial body. His journey as the Lunar Guardian had only just begun, and the fate of multiple worlds now rested in his hands. The weeks following the confrontation with the Veiled Hand were a whirlwind of activity for Michael and Lisa. The cabin, once a simple hideaway, had been transformed into a hub of mystical energy and ancient knowledge. Books and scrolls covered every available surface, their pages filled with secrets of the Lunar Guardians and the delicate balance between worlds. Michael's training intensified, pushing him to the limits of his newfound abilities. Each day brought new challenges and revelations as he delved deeper into the responsibilities of being a Lunar Guardian. On this particular morning, Michael sat cross-legged in the center of a complex magical circle drawn on the cabin floor. His eyes were closed in concentration, sweat beading on his brow as he attempted to project his consciousness beyond the physical realm. Lisa watched from nearby, her face a mask of focused attention. "Remember," she said softly, "the astral plane is a reflection of our world, but also so much more. Don't try to control it. Let it guide you." Michael took a deep breath, allowing his mind to drift. Suddenly, he felt a shift, as if he were falling through layers of reality. When he opened his eyes, he found himself floating in a vast, shimmering expanse. Streams of colorful energy flowed around him, and in the distance, he could see shadowy shapes that seemed to defy description. I think I did it," he whispered, his voice echoing strangely in the astral plane. Lisa's voice came to him, sounding distant yet clear. "Excellent. Now try to locate the other Lunar Guardians. Remember, you're connected by more than just power. You share a destiny." Michael focused, sending out a pulse of his own energy like a beacon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like stars blinking into existence, he began to see pinpoints of silvery light scattered across the astral plane. Each one pulsed with a unique rhythm, yet all were somehow harmonious. "I can see them," Michael said, awe coloring his voice. "There are dozens of them, all over the world." "Yes," Lisa confirmed. "Lunar Guardians have been born in every corner of the globe, each with their own unique connection to the balance between worlds. Some know of their heritage, while others, like you, have yet to awaken to their true nature." As Michael observed the lights, he noticed something disturbing. Dark tendrils of energy, similar to what he'd seen during the battle with the Veiled Hand, were creeping towards several of the lights. "Mom," he said urgently, "I think some of the other Guardians are in danger. The Veiled Hand. They're moving against them. Focus on one of them," Lisa instructed, her voice tense. "Try to establish a connection." Michael concentrated on the nearest threatened light. As he did, the astral plane seemed to zoom in, and suddenly he was seeing through someone else's eyes. He caught glimpses of a bustling city, felt the fear and confusion of someone on the run. A young woman's voice echoed in his mind. "Who are you? What's happening to me?" With a gasp, Michael snapped back to his own body, the magical circle flaring with energy as he returned. He looked up at Lisa, his eyes wide. "We have to help them. The Veiled Hand is closing in, and many of them don't even know what they are." Lisa nodded grimly. "I was afraid of this. The Veiled Hand must have accelerated their plans after their defeat here. We need to move quickly." She paused, fixing Michael with an intense gaze. "Are you ready for this? Once we start reaching out to the other Guardians, there's no going back. The Veiled Hand will throw everything they have at us." Michael stood, his body still tingling with residual energy from the astral plane. He thought of the young woman he'd briefly connected with, of all the other Lunar Guardians out there who were alone and confused. His resolve hardened. "I'm ready," he said firmly. "We can't let the Veiled Hand win. Whatever it takes, we'll protect the other Guardians and maintain the balance." A proud smile flickered across Lisa's face. "Then let's begin. We'll start with the Guardian you connected with. Do you think you can locate her in the physical world?" Michael closed his eyes, reaching out with his senses. The connection he'd formed in the astral plane was faint but still present. "Yes," he said after a moment. "She's in New York City. I can feel her fear, her confusion. We need to hurry." Lisa was already in motion, gathering supplies and tucking ancient texts into a weathered backpack. "I've prepared for this," she said, tossing Michael a small, intricately carved wooden box that contains talismans that will help mask our presence from the veiled hand. "We'll need every advantage we can get." As they prepared to leave the safety of their forest sanctuary, Michael felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The world beyond suddenly seemed vast and full of hidden dangers. But he also felt a sense of purpose, a calling that resonated deep within his being. Just as they were about to step out of the cabin, a sharp crack echoed through the forest. Michael and Lisa froze, exchanging alarmed glances. The protective wards around the property buzzed with warning energy. "They're here," Lisa whispered, her face pale. "The veiled hand. They must have found a way to track us." Michael's hands began to glow with silvery light as he prepared for battle. But Lisa grabbed his arm, shaking her head. "No, we can't fight them here. There's too much at stake. We need to get to the other guardians before they do." "But how do we escape?" Michael asked, hearing the sound of approaching footsteps and muffled voices. Lisa's eyes gleamed with determination. "The same way they found us, through the spaces between worlds. Michael, I need you to trust me and do exactly as I say. This is going to feel strange." She began to chant in an ancient language, her hands weaving complex patterns in the air. The space in front of them began to ripple and distort, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. "When I say go, step through," Lisa instructed, her voice strained with effort. "Don't hesitate, don't look back. Just move." The cabin door splintered inward, and Michael caught a glimpse of Caldwell's furious face before Lisa shouted, "Now!" Hand in hand, mother and son leaped into the shimmering portal. Michael felt a sensation of falling, of being stretched and compressed all at once. Colors and sounds whirled around him in a chaotic symphony. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Michael found himself standing on a busy New York City street, the sounds of traffic and pedestrians replacing the quiet of the forest. Lisa stood beside him, looking pale but determined. "Are you all right?" she asked, steadying him as he swayed slightly. Michael nodded, trying to shake off the disorientation. "Yeah, I think so. That was intense. Will the veiled hand be able to follow us?" Lisa shook her head. "Not immediately. The path I created will have collapsed behind us. It'll take them time to pick up our trail again." As they spoke, Michael's senses suddenly flared. He turned, scanning the crowded street, and his eyes locked onto a young woman hurrying down the sidewalk. She was glancing over her shoulder repeatedly, her face a mask of fear and confusion. "There," Michael said, pointing. "That's her, the guardian I connected with in the astral plane." Lisa nodded. "Good. Let's approach carefully. Remember, she doesn't know who or what she is yet. We don't want to scare her more than she already is." They began to make their way through the crowd, keeping the young woman in sight. As they drew closer, Michael could feel the energy radiating from her. Untamed and erratic, but undeniably the power of a lunar guardian. Just as they were about to reach her, a commotion erupted further down the street. Michael's heart sank as he saw several men in dark suits pushing their way through the crowd, their eyes fixed on the young woman. "The veiled hand," Lisa hissed. "They must have agents all over the city. We need to move fast." Without waiting for a response, Lisa surged forward. She reached the young woman just as one of the veiled hand agents did. In one fluid motion, Lisa grabbed the woman's arm and spun her around, placing herself between the guardian and her pursuer. "Run!" Lisa shouted to Michael and the woman. "Get her out of here. I'll hold them off." Michael hesitated for a split second, torn between helping his mother and protecting the new guardian. But Lisa's fierce glare brooked no argument. He grabbed the young woman's hand and took off down the street. "Wait, who are you? What's going on?" the woman cried as they ran. "My name's Michael," he said between breaths. "I know you're scared and confused, but I promise I'm here to help. What's your name?" "Zoe," she replied, her voice shaky. "I don't understand. These weird things keep happening around me. and those men have been chasing me for days." They ducked into an alley, pausing to catch their breath. Michael turned to face Zoe, his expression serious. "Zoe, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound crazy, but I need you to listen. You're not going crazy, and you're not alone. You're a lunar guardian like me. We have abilities that most people can't even imagine, but they come with a great responsibility." Zoe's eyes widened in disbelief. "A what? Look, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but..." Her words were cut off as a trash can near them suddenly levitated and hurled itself down the alley. Michael spun around to see two veiled hand agents approaching, their hands outstretched and glowing with dark energy. "Damn, they're using magic openly now," Michael muttered. He turned back to Zoe. "I know this is a lot, but right now I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Zoe looked from Michael to the approaching agents, fear and uncertainty warring in her eyes. Finally, she nodded. "I don't have much choice, do I?" Michael managed a small smile. "That's the spirit. Now I need you to close your eyes and focus. Feel the energy inside you, the connection to the world around you. Let it flow through you." As Zoe closed her eyes, concentrating, Michael turned to face the veiled hand agents. His hands began to glow with silvery light as he prepared to defend their position. "You can't run forever, Michael," one of the agents called out. "The veiled hand will always find you. Why fight the inevitable?" "Because some things are worth fighting for," Michael retorted. He could feel Zoe's power beginning to awaken behind him, a new star joining the constellation of lunar guardians. As the agents rushed forward, Michael raised his hands, channeling his power. The air around them began to shimmer and distort, reality itself bending to the will of the lunar guardian. The battle for the future of the lunar guardians had begun in earnest, and the streets of New York were about to witness magic beyond imagination. As the veiled hand agents charged forward, Michael's silver light clashed with their dark energy, creating a dazzling display of power that lit up the dingy alley. Pedestrians at the entrance stopped and stared, their smartphones raised to capture the inexplicable light show. "Zoe?" Michael called over his shoulder, his voice strained with effort. "I need your help. Don't think, just feel. Let your instincts guide you." Zoe's eyes snapped open, glowing with a soft, golden light. She raised her hands, mimicking Michael's stance, and to her astonishment, streams of golden energy poured forth, intertwining with Michael's silver light. The combined power of two lunar guardians proved too much for the veiled hand agents. They were thrown back, crashing into a pile of cardboard boxes at the far end of the alley. We did it," Zoe gasped, staring at her hands in wonder. Michael nodded, a grim smile on his face. "That was just the beginning. Come on, we need to find my mom and get out of here before more of them show up." They raced back to the main street, scanning the crowd for Lisa. The scene that greeted them was chaos. Cars were stopped in the middle of the road, their alarms blaring. People were running in all directions, screaming about explosions and strange lights. In the center of it all stood Lisa, her hands weaving intricate patterns in the air as she fended off a group of veiled hand agents. But Michael could see she was tiring, her movements becoming slower and less precise. "Mom!" he shouted, pushing through the panicked crowd with Zoe close behind. Lisa's eyes widened as she saw them approach. "Michael, no. Take Zoe and go. You need to protect." Her words were cut short as one of the agents took advantage of her distraction. A bolt of dark energy struck Lisa in the chest, sending her flying backward. "No!" Michael screamed, his power flaring in response to his emotions. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, cracks appearing in the asphalt. Zoe grabbed his arm, her own power pulsing in sync with his. "Michael, focus. We can save her, but not if you bring the whole street down on us." Her words cut through his panic, and Michael took a deep breath, reining in his power. Together, he and Zoe launched a coordinated attack on the veiled hand agents, their combined energies creating a dazzling display of silver and gold. The agents, caught off guard by the raw power of two awakened lunar guardians, fell back. Michael used the opportunity to rush to his mother's side, cradling her head in his lap. "Mom? Mom, can you hear me?" he pleaded, his voice choked with emotion. Lisa's eyes fluttered open, a weak smile crossing her face. "My brave boy," she whispered. "You've grown so much. I'm so proud of you. Save your strength," Michael urged, trying to assess her injuries. "We're going to get you out of here." But Lisa shook her head, her expression turning serious. "Listen to me, Michael. There's no time. You and Zoe need to go. Find the others. Complete your training." "I'm not leaving you," Michael insisted, tears streaming down his face. Lisa reached up, touching his cheek gently. "You have to. The fate of all worlds depends on it. Remember, balance is key. Trust in yourself and in the connection between all lunar guardians." Her hand fell away as she lost consciousness. Michael felt a surge of panic, but he could still sense her life force, weak but present. Zoe knelt beside them, her face pale but determined. "Michael, more of them are coming. We need to move." Michael nodded, his jaw set in grim determination. He scooped his mother up in his arms, surprised at how light she felt. "We're not leaving her. Can you clear us a path?" Zoe nodded, her hands already beginning to glow with golden energy. As they made their way through the chaos of the street, she deflected debris and pushed back anyone who got too close, her newfound powers responding instinctively to the need for protection. They ducked into a narrow side street, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter behind them. Michael's mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. They needed a safe place to heal his mother and regroup, somewhere the veiled hand wouldn't think to look. As if in answer to his thoughts, a shimmering doorway appeared in the brick wall beside them. An elderly woman stepped through, her eyes glowing with the same otherworldly light Michael had seen in the mirror. "Quickly," she said, her voice carrying the weight of ages. "Bring her inside. You'll be safe here." Michael hesitated for a moment, years of caution warring with desperate need. But something in the woman's eyes spoke of a shared purpose, a common destiny. "Let's go," he said to Zoe, stepping towards the portal. As they passed through the shimmering doorway, leaving the chaos of New York behind, Michael felt a sense of both trepidation and hope. They had escaped immediate danger, but he knew this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. The portal closed behind them, sealing them in a sanctuary hidden between worlds. As Michael gently laid his mother down on a nearby couch, he looked around at the strange, mystical space they now occupied. The elderly woman approached, her eyes kind but filled with an ancient wisdom. "Welcome, young guardians," she said softly. "I am Alara, keeper of the lunar sanctum. You have much to learn, and precious little time to learn it." Michael and Zoe exchanged glances, both overwhelmed by the rapid turn of events. But as Michael looked down at his unconscious mother, he felt a steely resolve settle over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever secrets were yet to be revealed, he would face them. For now, they were safe. But the real journey, the path to becoming true lunar guardians and protectors of the balance between worlds, was only just beginning. The lunar sanctum was unlike anything Michael or Zoe had ever seen. It seemed to exist in a space between realities, with walls that shimmered and shifted, revealing glimpses of distant worlds and celestial phenomena. Ancient artifacts and texts lined the walls, their surfaces etched with symbols that seemed to move when looked at directly. Alara moved with practiced ease through the space, gathering supplies to tend to Lisa. Her movements were fluid, almost ethereal, as if she were only partially bound by the laws of physics. "Your mother will recover," Alara said, her voice carrying a hint of starlight. The veiled hand's attack was powerful, but Lisa is strong. She just needs time and the healing energies of this place. Michael nodded, relief washing over him. He watched as Alara placed her hands over Lisa, a soft glow emanating from her palms. The angry red mark on Lisa's chest began to fade, her breathing becoming more regular. Zoe, meanwhile, was wide-eyed, taking in every detail of their surroundings. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. "And who are you, really?" Alara turned to them, her ancient eyes twinkling. This is the lunar sanctum, a nexus point between all realities where the power of the lunar guardians is at its strongest. As for me, I am the keeper of this place, tasked with guiding and protecting new guardians as they come into their power. She gestured for them to sit on cushions that seemed to materialize out of thin air. As they did, a shimmering projection appeared in the center of the room, showing a map of the world with points of light scattered across it. What you see before you, Alara explained, is the current state of the lunar guardians across the globe. Each light represents one of you, though many are yet unaware of their true nature. Michael leaned forward, studying the map intently. There are so many, he murmured, but some of the lights, they're flickering. Are they in danger? Alara's expression turned grave. Indeed they are. The veiled hand has grown bolder, more aggressive in their pursuit of guardians. Your confrontation in New York was not an isolated incident. Zoe hugged herself, a shiver running through her body. Why us? What do they want with us? The veiled hand believes that by harnessing the power of the lunar guardians, they can reshape reality itself, Alara explained. They seek to upset the delicate balance between worlds, to rule over all planes of existence. Michael's jaw clenched as he remembered Caldwell's words. But they don't understand the true nature of our power, do they? It's not about control, it's about balance, Alara finished, nodding approvingly. Exactly. The role of the Lunar Guardians is to maintain the equilibrium between all realms, to ensure that no single force gains too much power. She waved her hand, and the projection changed to show swirling patterns of energy, like cosmic webs interconnecting various planes of existence. Your abilities allow you to perceive and influence these connections, Alara continued. But with great power comes great responsibility. Unchecked, a lunar guardian could cause catastrophic damage to the fabric of reality itself. Zoe raised her hand hesitantly, like a student in class. But how do we learn to control it? I mean, I didn't even know I had these powers until a few hours ago. Alara smiled gently. That, young one, is why you are here. The lunar sanctum is not just a safe haven. It is a place of learning, of growth. Here, you will train to master your abilities and understand your role in the grand tapestry of existence. Michael stood up, pacing the room as he processed everything. But what about the other guardians? We can't just hide here while the veiled hand hunts them down. You're right, Alara agreed, which is why your training must be accelerated. The balance is shifting and time grows short. We must prepare you to not only defend yourselves, but to seek out and awaken the other guardians before it's too late. As if on cue, one of the lights on the global projection began to pulse urgently. Alara's expression turned serious as she studied it. It seems your first test may come sooner than expected, she said. A guardian in Tokyo is on the verge of awakening, and the veiled hand is closing in. We must act quickly. Michael and Zoe exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and trepidation passing between them. This was it, their first real mission as lunar guardians. What about my mom? Michael asked, looking over at Lisa's still form. Alara placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. She will be safe here under my protection. Your mother is strong, Michael. Have faith in her recovery. Michael took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. He turned to Zoe, seeing his own determination reflected in her eyes. Are you ready for this? Zoe nodded, a nervous smile playing on her lips. As ready as I'll ever be, I guess. We're really doing this, aren't we? Saving the world, or worlds, or whatever. Indeed you are, Alara said, her voice filled with both pride and concern. But remember, young guardians, your greatest strength lies not in your individual powers, but in your connection to each other and to the balance you serve. She raised her hands, and a shimmering portal began to form in the center of the room. Through it, they could see the neon-lit streets of Tokyo. Go now, Alara urged. Find the awakening guardian and bring them to safety. But be cautious. The veiled hand will be watching, and they grow stronger with each passing day. Michael took one last look at his mother, silently promising to return. Then, with a nod to Zoe, he stepped towards the portal. As they passed through, leaving the safety of the lunar sanctum behind, Michael felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Their journey as lunar guardians was truly beginning, and the fate of multiple worlds now rested on their shoulders. As the bustling energy of Tokyo enveloped them, Michael and Zoe steeled themselves for the challenges ahead, ready to face whatever the veiled hand might throw their way. The hunt for the new guardian had begun, and with it, the next chapter in the cosmic battle for balance and control of reality itself. As Michael, Zoe, and Hiroshi prepared to embark on their separate missions, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the lunar sanctum. The global projection flickered and then stabilized, revealing a startling new development. Alara's eyes widened in surprise. "Incredible," she breathed. "The awakening guardians. They're responding to your energy. They're reaching out." The three young guardians gathered around the projection, watching in awe as the pulsing lights representing Rio, Cairo, and Sydney began to glow brighter. Threads of silver, gold, and earthy brown, mirroring Michael, Zoe, and Hiroshi's unique energies, stretched across the globe, connecting with the awakening guardians. "What's happening?" Hiroshi asked, his voice filled with wonder. Alara's face broke into a rare smile. "You've grown stronger than you realize. Your combined presence in the sanctum, your unity of purpose, it's creating a resonance effect. You're calling to the other guardians, guiding them to awaken safely." As they watched, more lights across the globe began to pulse in harmony. The veiled hand's influence, represented by creeping shadows on the projection, began to recede. Michael felt a surge of hope. "We don't have to face this alone," he realized. "We're all connected." Zoe nodded, her eyes shining. A network of guardians, all working together to maintain the balance. "But what about the veiled hand?" Hiroshi asked, concern evident in his voice. "They're still out there." As if in answer to his question, a dark mass began to coalesce on the projection, centered over a remote location in the Himalayas. "It appears the veiled hand is making their final move," Alara said gravely. "They're gathering their forces for one last attempt to upset the balance." Michael squared his shoulders, looking at Zoe and Hiroshi. "Then that's where we need to go. Together." Alara nodded approvingly. "You've learned well, young guardians. Remember, your greatest strength lies in your unity and in the balance you protect." As a shimmering portal opened, revealing a snow-capped mountain peak, Michael turned to his mother. Lisa smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "Go," she said softly. "I'll be here when you return." The three guardians stepped through the portal, emerging onto a windswept plateau. Before them stood the assembled forces of the veiled hand, dark energy swirling around them. At their center was Director Caldwell, his face twisted with frustration and desire. "It's over, Caldwell," Michael called out, his voice carrying over the howling wind. "The Guardians are awakening all over the world. You can't control a power that's meant to maintain balance, not domination." Caldwell's response was a snarl of defiance as he launched a massive wave of dark energy towards them. But Michael, Zoe, and Hiroshi were ready. Their powers combined silver, gold, and earthy brown, creating a shield that not only deflected the attack, but began to push back against the veiled hand's forces. As the battle raged, Michael felt the presence of countless other guardians lending their strength. The very fabric of reality seemed to pulse around them, responding to the united will of the lunar guardians. With a final, monumental effort, the three young guardians released a burst of pure, harmonious energy. The veiled hand's forces were enveloped in a blinding light, their dark powers dissipating like smoke in the wind. When the light faded, Caldwell and his followers were gone, banished to a realm where they could no longer threaten the balance. In the aftermath, as the sun broke through the clouds, Michael, Zoe, and Hiroshi stood together, exhausted but triumphant. They had faced their greatest challenge and emerged victorious, not through individual power, but through unity and understanding of their true purpose. As they prepared to return to the lunar sanctum, Michael looked out over the stunning Himalayan vista. He thought of all the guardians around the world, newly awakened and ready to take up their roles as protectors of balance. The path ahead would not be easy, but they would face it together. The crescent moon, visible even in the daytime sky, seemed to shine with renewed brightness. Michael smiled, feeling the interconnected web of guardians pulsing with life and purpose. They had not just saved the world, they had restored balance to all of reality. As the shimmering portal back to the sanctum opened, Michael knew that this was not an end, but a new beginning. The true journey of the Lunar Guardians was just starting, and the future, while uncertain, was full of hope. Thank you for listening until the end. Share your opinion about the story in the comments and let us know which character you liked the most. If this story touched you and you want to hear more, click on the next story appearing on your screen. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel so we can build a great community of people who share emotional stories together. Until the next story.